how about this tactical bantamweight main event? Umar Nurmagomedov with the unbeaten record and the very low ranking, though, would come in at number 10 here against number 2, Corey Sandhagen. 5 rounds later, though, we get a unanimous decision for Umar Nurmagomedov, and we get him calling for the next shot at the bantamweight title and the winner of Sean O'Malley, Merab Dvalishvili later this year. So, Chuck, for the 18-0 Nurmagomedov, we know about the talent, but he hadn't had the resume to back it up. This was that super close-up against an elite title challenger-ready guy to answer the question, is Umar the real deal? 5 rounds later, what's your answer to that question?
I think he's the real deal, and I think when you look at the kind of opponents Umar has faced, you know, nobody near the caliber of Corey Sandhagen. So it's one of those situations you knew he was getting a complete bump up in situation, circumstance, and all of that, but also an event that's basically tailor-made for him, right? Like he's fighting over in Abu Dhabi. He's getting a main event against a number 2 guy. I think he was number 10 coming into it. He gets the showcase, and obviously, if he wins that, he catapults the field, and now he puts himself into a title shot. I think the UFC wants to be in their Nurmagomedov business. I think that they like that name attached to any kind of billboard and marquee and poster and everything else. I think that they like that. And he was able to make good. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
to win a fight 50-45. If people were a little bored by it, that's okay. But he dominated that fight.
So he did. Here's what's interesting. Watching it in real time, which can have its pitfalls as a journalist, Chuck. You know, you're tweeting. You're texting people back. Maybe you're sitting in the 8th row of Delta like it's possible. And, you know, and maybe you're not. I thought it was 2-2 going into the 5th round on first watch. When I saw the scorecards of 50-45 and 49-46 twice for Umar, I was like, wow, I don't know if that's the fight I saw. Upon rewatch, upon closer inspection, for as close, and it's weird. The parallels between the 2 main events this weekend are interesting. Israel Madrimov didn't have the requisite resume, but had this reputation and this background, and he elevated his game, and so did Umar in this case. But upon rewatch, for as close and competitive in a technical duel and the highest end of mixed martial arts as this was, I think upon rewatch, 4-1 or even 5-0 is not incorrect.
Right. I think you could give Sandhagen the first round. I don't know how you scored it, but I thought that you could give him the first round. But what happened in that fight was interesting. It was almost like a pattern developed, and you're seeing an exact facsimile, not exact, but a very close facsimile in every single round. The takedowns looked exactly the same. You always ended up with Sandhagen kind of sitting on the action, trying to get out of it, able to get out of it, forcing it to stand essentially. And I think the big surprise, if there were 2 surprises in this fight, one was that on the feet, Umar Nurmagomedov outstruck Corey Sandhagen, who has boxing gloves tattooed on his leg. Sure. I mean, this is a guy who really believes in his boxing. And also in the championship round, Sandhagen had been, I think this was his 5th fight in a row where he'd been in the championships rounds. 3 of those had went the full distance. I fully believed that if it went into the championship rounds, Sandhagen would have the advantage late. That wasn't the case. It was actually Umar at the end kind of running away with it, which to me was a surprise. That told me a lot about his conditioning, where he's at as a fighter, and his preparedness for this.
Well, that's going to lead me to a few questions. Let's start first. You mentioned that the UFC wants to be in the Nurmagomedov business, as they should. And by the way, Usman, another cousin, was in the corner of the Bellator champion. I'd love to see him get to the UFC and see what he can do too. But Khabib was back as Coach Khabib. And Chuck, it's not only great for business when Khabib's walking back out after the somewhat abrupt retirement and all that, but I think it's so much better for the fighters when he's in their corner. There is a presence. Khabib has taken the role of his late father, Abdulmanap. Let's go to this great clip before round 5. Khabib was not afraid to get in that ass of Umar at any point in this fight, and let's hear it.
Who's the man? You got to show him.
You are so much better than him with your hands. You understand? This is the champion round. You cannot let this go. It does not matter what happens. You have to go for this.
So far, you showed me.
You know, I mean, maybe Khabib's got financial reasons to be back. I'm happy to see him either way, Chuck, okay? But my point of setting that up is I love seeing him back. He's a huge asset. He knows what he has in his cousin here, Umar. Is there any rightful narrative to come out of this fight that as good as Umar looked and he passed the test against a guy who is as tough as it comes in this division, you did hear Khabib a lot saying, believe in your power and your striking. Trust it, brother. Go out there. Like, there was a lot of urging to do more. When you look at this fight in totality, Umar did everything he was supposed to pass the test. But could he have done more based on Khabib's words in your eyes?
That's the toughest judge maybe in the game, right? Like if he's coaching and you're out there outstrike, did you think that he would outstrike Sandhagen in the fight? Like that's
No.
so I mean, from our perspective, the surprise was that he was out there outstriking a guy who I think is very honed and skilled in that craft. But this tells you what they know about Umar, right? It tells you something about the depth of what they know about their own guy. And I've heard this a little bit more too, that they believe in his hands and stuff like that. But sometimes people say this just to kind of, send you in the wrong direction and put up a little obstacle over here. But that wasn't the case. If anything, it adds a wrinkle to his game that makes him super dangerous. I wasn't sure, to be honest, how this would look. And contemplating a fight with, for instance, like Merab, would Umar be able to do everything with him?
That looks a completely different fight.
It's a totally different fight now. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think, if anything, it just added more scope and dimension to what he's able to do. I didn't think he was playing it conservative. It looked to me like he was trying to get the finish. I think Corey Sandhagen is that good.
Well, I think casual eyes, which I sometimes have, and we all can fall into that, is sort of like, man, he does look like he could be or should be doing more. And it does look like, what we've seen him against lesser competition, but that's what happens when you step up. I think it's the same thing that we're going to talk about in the Terrence Crawford-Israel Madrimov fight, where it's like, there's this narrative coming out of there that Bud is old and see now. Well, it's like, no, he fought a really good guy who worked his balls off to make himself not easy to be hit.
We're such a fickle audience.
And when you're fighting Corey Sandhagen at this level, you have to be able to out-chess the chess master. You got to give Corey Sandhagen respect. Even though he's now lost all 4 times he stepped up to like the very highest elite level, all against great fighters, championship level, he never stops evolving, trying to get better. And Chuck, I
think he likes that Delta 8 as well, to be honest with you.
I would hope so. I'd like to hang with you. Do you think he would weird us out a little bit? Like, I never know some of these guys, but I'd like to hang with that guy, or maybe he'd weird me out. Where do you think Sandhagen would fall in that?
For you to hang out with?
Yeah.
I think you guys would be like,
you think I'd weird him out, all right? But is he a Colorado guy, as you
He's Colorado, man. He used to be a really good basketball player in the state. Like
he's squirrely, I can see that. Yeah.
He had some
Well,
hops.
now look, doesn't Sandhagen kind of remind you of Maniche a little?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, Corey Maniche, shout out to that government.
Have you heard, I mean, seriously, like his whole evolution and part, it's almost like a Dominic Cruz. That division is just very high. Very they're doing a lot of mushrooms. And things
they're
like
high
that.
Up and they're high quality talent.
But it's both of those guys. Like there's a couple of guys like that who are just, they evolve philosophically. It's not just that they look at life differently as they evolve in the fight game. He's certainly one of those guys, and I do think from talking to coaches and stuff like that with him over the years that he's trying to add wrinkles to his game, but it might just be one of those things.
I mean, he brought in Trevor Whitman. He's bringing in an incredible, as they talked about on the broadcast, different looks in the training camp because he knew what he had in front of him, which is a guy that does not make mistakes and is great across every category. So that's really what I'm trying to say.
You can appreciate, though, that he was like, let me fight Umar, because this is the second time they booked it. I mean, I love that. To me, that's what I love.
I absolutely love that. A guy who believes in himself will always want to go back into the fire. That's Corey Sandhagen. But I guess the point in making a parallel to the Crawford fight is you can only look so good against a guy like Corey Sandhagen. Right. If you are of the A- or B level, he can potentially get you out of there. But if you have the potential to be an AA plus guy like Umar showed in here, it's going to turn into exactly what we saw, a sustained chess match. I don't think it was boring. I think it was beautiful, brilliant, and tactical.
Most of the losses that Sandhagen has, those guys had to earn it. I think maybe the Sterling fight was the only one where it was kind of surprising. He went in there and he was able to kind of bust off.
2 minutes in?
Yeah. That was the only one that I can recall where it made it look easy. You're 100% right. He is just a tough out. I think it's his adaptability too, man. He's very good, but it's his adaptability. He kind of reads what you're going to do. He reacts, and he's always been able to do that. So I don't know what the criticism. I feel like there was some criticism for Umar, but at the same time, you're like, dude, 50-45. I mean, that's.
Well, I wonder if we can say 50-45, if we can say he passed the test, if we can now talk about what we are, is that he's a legitimate title contender. Yeah. I don't think it's wrong to look at what we did see, which was just like Crawford Madrimov, a lowered output, I think, for both because of the quality of the guy across from them. Now, I think this Sandhagen fight was a little bit faster than the boxing match at times, but still it was very checkmate, very back and forth.
It seemed like he had to respect that takedown, the level changes more than he probably wanted to.
I think the problem is we saw Umar against lower level guys. Now we're seeing him against a high level. We never kind of saw the in between where maybe he finishes some of those guys because they go for it in certain points of that fight. They make big mistakes. That's the thing. Neither Umar or Sandhagen was really willing to risk making the mistake that could cost them that fight.
That's true. And I sometimes wonder, like, with a guy like Umar, you're like, what is the point of it? Like, if you go through and you buzzsaw Sandhagen, of course, everybody's going to be pining to see you sitting cage side for O'Malley's fight with Merab. But at the same time, one of the big things for me, and I think it will resonate, is does this guy add doubt to the next matchup he'll get? Whether it's O'Malley or Merab, do you now think, I don't know if they can beat Umar? And I think that he did that. And I think that that's what's good about it.
You're right.
Like,
he didn't give you the big time finish where you're like, oh shit, he's the next champion. But I think if you know MMA, and I'm not trying to say that from a standpoint like I know MMA, it'll be like me. But I'm saying
you do know MMA.
I do know a certain amount.
Mixed
of
marital
MMA,
arts.
Right?
Or are we talking about mixed
marital arts? I'm big on power couples in the MMA game. You know, in terms of charting their progress and all that. But I will say that what I saw was a guy who's ready to become champion now, because Umar does not have any holes in his game and he is rock solid across the board. Now, was I surprised that he was unable to create big moments of success on the ground despite being able to take Sandhagen down? Yes, but that's also a testament to what Corey Sandhagen can do and how the size that he brings and his ability.
It's funny, like you keep mentioning the Madrima fight with Bud, but it's like, in a weird way, you could look at this. It's always like a recency bias or a recency thing that happens. This is where we're at. But you could see how O'Malley would be like, or people who love O'Malley would be like, well, listen, man, if he can kind of thwart takedowns and just keep it standing, he'll tear him up on the feet compared to what, Sandhagen was able to do. It adds these dimensions. I love that aspect of it. But honestly, I'm not sure that O'Malley can prevent the takedowns like Sandhagen did.
Well, that builds a great segue to where we're going, which is O'Malley's reaction in a second. But I'll say that you're right. This is interesting. But Umar, like, there's not only no holes. Dude, there's the way he's built. I mean, he's a brick shithouse, Chuck. There seems to be no flaws physically or mentally. And he seems to have, I don't know if he has what Khabib had, which is that next level of poise, control, the ability to slow things down in chaos and make the right move. Yeah. I mean, Islam's got that, obviously. It's all part of that Dagestan Abdulmanak coaching tree. But Umar might be a lot of that with his own level of dynamic offense, which makes him different and unique to the family. Look, as things stand right now, from what I saw in the way that he dealt with all of the unique challenges that a guy like Corey Sandhagen brings, I think he beats every bantamweight. Now, not demonstratively, but I think we saw in there that this guy is ready to go from number 10 to the title. He is.
He's 100% there, and I think the one fight, I mean, you could plug him in against O'Malley. It would be fascinating. Especially, let's say O'Malley just blows the doors off of Merab. You'd be like, oh, my God, that's a fascinating fight now.
And Merab's the betting favorite, and he should be.
Exactly. But if Merab does what the betting favorite is, what betting public thinks he's going to do and wins that fight, that sets up a ridiculous fight.
Dude, that Merab versus Umar is suddenly one of the most hardcore, amazing fights you can make in this sport.
Because you got a cardio guy who can just go 25 minutes hard and honestly win the fight anywhere too. Like, he's one of those guys, I think, he just overpowers you wherever you are. But you're just mentioning Umar in terms of being a chip off the old block and with his guys in his camp, like Khabib. One of the things Khabib did is he would kind of surprise you. Remember when he knocked down McGregor? He knocks him down with a punch, and you're like, whoa, that's not supposed to happen. Exactly. Of all the things, all the scenarios are supposed to happen, Umar's got that. He's got this weird, he's subtly better than you, even at your game.
Like, it's a weird thing too. On top of that,
yeah.
And the discipline to wrestle. So, I don't know if he's as fully. Is he more well-rounded than any Nurmagomedov? I'm trying to figure it out in my head. I mean, Islam's pretty damn well-rounded. Islam's striking game has gone up into Khabib too. Khabib found a way to make his striking game elite, even though it was unorthodox and not very diverse.
True. It's a tough one. I think that we need to see Umar. This was the first big evidence. I mean, going against Barcelos or like Kelleher, you get some information, but not a ton. You get your information in a fight like this. I think you get more on the next one. I'm not sure to make the full comparison to Khabib or even Islam. I think we need to see him a little more, but he certainly looks like he has. It's almost like there's another gear, and it's just it's a gear to meanness, like just no nonsense, like tenacious. Like, there's something in those guys so humorless, cold, exacting.
The meanness is the best way to say it.
It's weird though.
They had
like
that debate,
all those guys have that demeanor.
They had
to
that
them.
debate on the DAZN broadcast when talking about Terrence Crawford. And it's right. Crawford has this like backbone to him that is like, I'm just not going to let you one up me in anything.
Yeah.
And if you have a moment, I'm going to have two moments after it. Umar in that goes back to the way that these guys are wired. And these guys, not just the guys from Dagestan, but specifically this tree, what they're building is a family dynasty here. And it's incredible to see. Could you, even though Islam's not a blood relative, right? He's more of a friend.
Yeah, just a friend.
Brother, friend. But imagine if they had Islam, Umar as champions at the same time. And imagine if Usman Nurmagomedov came behind them and joined the UFC, who he could be a run, he could be a potential title contender. It's crazy to see.
Some of it feels inevitable.
It does really feel inevitable. Let's hear Sean O'Malley now. This was on his YouTube channel, I believe, immediately after giving his reaction to what he saw from Umar.
Spoke about the champion Sean O'Malley. What do you want next?
Just give me title shot. O'Malley, Merab, or someone else. It doesn't matter. I'm here.
This guy's fucking smart.
Now, guys, talk.
All right, boys. Umar got the job done. Pretty close fight, in my opinion. It looked like he did win, but again, that was a very close fight. Corey is, in my opinion, one of the pound-for-pound best guys in the world. So for Umar to be ranked number 10, a lot of the guys wouldn't fight him. So I'm not surprised that he didn't really have any high-level fights up until this, or at least high-level popular opponents. No one in the UFC wanted to fight this guy. Incredible performance by both guys, really. Corey did a really good job shutting down that Umar's offensive takedowns and wrestling. Striking was pretty close. Umar looked like he landed a harder shot. Overall, I mean, that's as high level as a fight as it gets. Me versus Umar next? Question mark? Hashtag we'll see. LOL. Figgy called me out. Eli and Max are going to fight soon. Undefeated Umar, 18-0 versus undefeated Sugar Show, 19-0. Beat a Dagestanian. I wouldn't mind that. That'd be a real good way to get at Connor. Ooh, imagine how jealous he would be. That might just be, I might just go whoop Umar just for that reason alone. Could be a potential massive next.
Dude, I have to say, Sean O'Malley's starting to grow on me. I never really connected.
Wait, were you reluctant to appreciate him?
I never connected with his shtick and his character, if you will, of what he's selling to the people. I know that fans love it. I'm starting to like his humor and his cleverness.
That's a big-ass comb his daughter had there.
Yes. Shout out to Umar there. Do you echo what he said when he said, look, nobody wants to fight Sandhagen, so almost this one victory for Umar raises him all the way up. Do you agree what he said, that Sandhagen's basically pound for pound level? If he doesn't have the breakthrough wins that keep him in there, do you think ability-wise, though, he is sort of top 10?
I think so, and I think, a guy like O'Malley is a student of the game, probably sees it analytically, like he can look at it and say, like, I can see what this guy does, X's and O's, he's very good. I think that he is among the very elite. He's also weird, though, because you mentioned it. He kind of gets into a penultimate spot. I think he looked at this. It was kind of punching down, right, because the guy's number 10. But he knew Umar had a lot of juice going into this fight. If he takes that, he can solidify himself as a title shot, all that stuff. I think he's kind of in that Dustin Poirier world of, like,
he is.
Like, he's like, he can beat the guys to get you there. Then he kind of falters when he gets to the big fights.
His losses are Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw, Piotr Jan, and now Umar Nurmagomedov. Yeah. I can't say that without bumbling. I'm sorry. Umar Nurmagomedov.
Umar, I believe.
That is the top of the pops. Yeah. I mean, that's the best it gets.
And I mean...
Does he have another run at 32?
I think so, because he is only 32. But this is why I mentioned Poirier, because Poirier is, 35 or somewhere in that range.
More mileage.
And we've seen, exactly, more mileage. And I think we've seen what Poirier can do. It doesn't necessarily take away from you in today's UFC from getting back there, a couple wins. He could be back there. I think his resolve is to get back there. He even said that afterwards. He's like, now he's really good. He's ahead of me, and I have to get back to him,
Yeah.
I think that resolve will help him. I do think he has another run in him. What remains to be seen is if he'll ever really do that, or he'll become a Dustin Poirier, which is totally fine.
Sure.
You can be a fan favorite.
Or the Dan Hooker of the lightweight era.
Or the Dan Hooker,
Well,
these guys are completely respectable fighters. They're very good,
I think Sandhagen's even better compared to his own division than Dan Hooker was. No disrespect. All right, look, if it's Umar versus O'Malley, it's a monster fight that we must see. We just talked about the potential style matchup that it could be if it was Merab versus Umar. Merab and Sean O'Malley are going to meet, of course, in September at the Sphere. Here is Umar after the fight being asked who he would prefer to face.
They said I'm next for the title. I am #1 contender. I will fight for the title next. Doesn't matter it's gonna be Merab or O'Malley. Be careful, guys. I coming for you. Doesn't matter who gonna be next. I coming.
Would you rather fight Merab or would you rather fight Sean?
If I will choose, they will think I scared one of them. That's why I want to fight with both of them. I don't scare no one. Doesn't matter. Even if boss, I will fight. I will smash them both.
He will smash them both, and that's what you're supposed to say when you're from that.
I love that he's got that voice. That's great.
It sounds like he's speaking on 1.5 speed the whole time. Chuck, let's talk about the larger picture, because related to this is a very important bantamweight fight that we also saw on Saturday's main card. And by the way, the bantamweight division is still the deepest and best in the world at the moment. And that's former flyweight champion Davison Figueiredo edging out Marlon Chito Vera on the undercard to improve now to 3-0 at bantamweight. Remember, he left the flyweight division following the 4 title fights with Brandon Moreno, of which he won 1 of those, a draw, and 2 losses. But now he's got 3 straight wins here. And then he called for a title shot of himself. So first of all, Chuck, I want to get your opinion here. Figueiredo's doing what you don't normally do, which is get older in age to his late 30s and reinvent himself in a new weight class. And
the higher one, right?
Decidedly smaller. We have a highlight of the knockdown that seemed to really push him forward in round 3 of a very close and competitive fight. And this shocked the MMA world because no one does this to Chito Vera.
He's never been knocked down, as far as I know.
What can we say about the viability here of Figueiredo as a bantamweight title contender?
I think it's legit now. This was the fight I needed to see, you know. And it's funny you mention it, man, because this is an era of the UFC where there's very strange outlier examples of things that don't traditionally happen. You have Alex Pereira, who did the exact same thing. 185, loses his belt, goes up to 205 as a 36-year-old, you know, guy who's been in a lot of wars from the kickboxing world, now owning it, right? Like he's one of the UFC's biggest stars, winning all these fights. He goes up in weight. Now you get Figgy, who's coming around, and I always thought, like, you know, maybe he's more suited to 135. Obviously, he had his issues at 125. It just feels like he'd be happier there, and I think it's kind of showing. He's just more comfortable. His strength really adds up to knock Chito down, man.
But he looks so much smaller than Chito.
He did look smaller, and that is the big question, I guess. But at the same time, some of these guys, like Umar, for instance, is just built like a hydrant, you know?
Sure.
And including Merab. Like, they're not the biggest in terms of length or whatever. They're all kind of these compact muscle dudes, and he just adds a completely...
He relies on his strengths. And it's not just the pinpoint nature of his punches and the pop. His footwork, he's never... If you notice, he didn't hang around long enough to become a problem until Chito made the... Cheeto, I thought, made the adjustment too late. It was at the end of the second round he started to really walk him down. But look at what Figueiredo does to counter that adjustment. I didn't think that small he'd be able to carry his power up, but it seems like he's picking his spots as a counterpuncher perfectly.
The greatest thing that happened in that fight was that he got a couple of takedowns in that first round, and he was basically saying, like, Chito, we can do this all day. I can eke out this thing, you know, and just kind of grind you to a 30-27 type of situation. That didn't happen. In round 2, he gets shut down there, but it was almost like he was like, I'm not real committed to it anyway. I'll just light you up on the feet. And he showed that he could do that. And then in round 3, he catches him. And I think that that's where that level, you know, threatening to kind of do the takedowns and stuff like that kind of opens something up. He's just dangerous, man. And he's a dog.
I would not have expected that he would move up in weight here, look to be the smaller man every time, and then beat Rob Font, which is not an easy debut, submit Cody Garbrandt. You can say what you will about what Garbrandt has left, but it's still not an easy fight. This was supposed to be the fight that corrects that, where you say, okay, hey, nice job trying to make a run here. Instead, he passes this test as well. So 36, I believe, 3-0 in the division, former champion. What do you do next? Now, it's going to be Merab versus Sean. It seems like they're telling us Umar already has the winner, and we've already talked business-wise.
I think they set it up,
that last name, Nurmagomedov. But you could almost argue
you could
that
100%
Figgy Umar
that
should be the next fight because Umar doesn't have as many big-name wins, not even close to as many big-name wins.
That's what I was thinking, is like if you compare the resumes, like I was mentioning, you know, Kelleher or Salos, like those types of names, that's all good. You get in there, you got Sandhagen. Now that's his first big name. But if you really look at it, you know, to me, in my mind, Rob Font, Garbrandt, these are bigger names. You're 3-0 with a clear escalation of really big names. I think that you could make that argument right now that he deserves, if anybody's going to be waiting in the, cage side at the Sphere next month, it could be Davison Figueiredo. I just feel like the UFC is expediting Umar into the situation for reasons that we've talked about. But
I also don't like that matchup for Figgy against Umar. Like,
yeah.
I think
so them fighting together, like against each other.
It has to be I think for Figgy to truly get the title shot and potentially have a chance to win, it's got to be matchup dependent. There's some size
I agree
issues,
with you,
man.
but I think you could almost, this is true. And I think if there's going to be somebody who exploits that size issue, it's going to be Umar, who
or somebody like O'Malley with the range. I mean, there's a lot going. I thought Chito was the perfect matchup because he could exploit the technical gap between them and the speed.
If I'm O'Malley, and I mean, he's been like, I love watching that clip because I hate the Muhammad Ali things, but like you reference the Muhammad Ali because he was always like brash and like, I'd take on any of these guys. They always had a word for whoever was coming up. I love that kind of thing. I feel like O'Malley gets that. Like he always is like, yeah, I'm not afraid of Umar. What are you? Look at this little twerp. Look at this twerp. You know, I'll treat him like a paper football. Flick him out of here. You know, like
get your guitar on the MTV. You know, that ain't working, right?
But it's like I love that. But if he beats Merab and somehow he fights Davison, like I would think that would feel to him like this really favors me having an era. I'm going to be able to run with this for a while.
It would be.
I would think that he would think.
Look, I'm
feel
still
good about
not
that
over being amazed that Figueiredo was able to win back his title at 34 at 125, being barely able to make weight against a guy who had just finished him, right?
Yeah.
I think he had finished him, right? Moreno submitted him in the second fight. And then the third fight, he comes back and wins the title back at 34. Dude, that showed you that it's not just this flashy dude who talks a lot of shit. Man, he's a warrior and he can back it up. This reinvention is really fun to watch.
It is.
Seriously.
I love the division because I think that we could have been having this discussion 2 years ago, and you would have had a different set of names. Some of them would still have been there. O'Malley was the guy who was way down, but now he's up in there. It's just, I love that you can plug all these iterations in, and they're all kind of fascinating at this point. You still have Henry Cejudo, who's hanging around. You know, you've got guys like that. I find it to be so fun because some divisions you get like middleweight or something where there's the Vittoris and those kind of guys, and they're always kind of mucking it up, like you know what I mean? Like, and you're like, we've seen him already. We've seen him already. It's so wide open at bantamweight. I really dig it. It
really is. In Figueiredo, for whatever he lacks, he's sharpening and leaning on everything he does bring, and it's fun to see. It's great to see. I love this division. Did Jose Aldo just get a fight announced?
He does. It's Batista, I believe, is fighting.
Mario Batista.
Yeah,
I don't like that fight for him.
No, they could have plugged him in, like in this new scenario, the way it's shaken out, they could have plugged him into a better fight. You know?
Bigger name, older guy, whatever. I mean, can we get Dominic Cruz against Aldo? Can we do that?
I keep thinking that that's what they're going to do, but then they don't do it.